The hum of the jet engine was a familiar lullaby, one that had sung me to sleep on countless nights as I crisscrossed time zones, chasing deals and building an empire from the ground up. But today, it was a sound of anticipation, of homecoming. The pilot had announced our early arrival into LAX, a full day ahead of schedule. A project in Tokyo had wrapped up with a speed that surprised even me, and the thought of surprising my wife, Amelia, was a giddy, boyish thrill I hadn't felt in years. I pictured her face, the way her eyes would light up, a genuine, soul-deep smile that could make a man feel like he was the only person on earth. I had it all planned. I'd slip into the house, quiet as a mouse, and find her wherever she was, maybe in the garden, tending to her roses, the California sun making a halo of her blonde hair, or maybe in the kitchen, humming to herself while trying a new recipe. And my mother, I smiled at the thought of her. She'd be in her favorite armchair in the sunroom, listening to one of her audiobooks, a serene expression on her face. The thought of them together, my two most precious people, safe and happy in the home I'd built for them, was the fuel that kept my engine running. It was the why behind every sleepless night, every high-stakes negotiation. My mother, Clara, had lost her sight to a degenerative disease a decade ago. My father had passed away not long after, and it was a promise I made to him on his deathbed that I would always take care of her. When Amelia and I married, I was nervous about bringing my mother to live with us. It was a lot to ask of a new bride, but Amelia, my sweet, compassionate Amelia, had insisted. "She's your mother, Richard," she'd said, her hand on my cheek. "That makes her my family too. We'll take care of her together." And she did, or so I believed. She learned how to guide my mother, how to arrange the furniture so there were clear, predictable paths. She read to her, described the colors of the sunset, and from everything I saw, treated her with the kind of tenderness and respect that made my heart swell with love and gratitude. I was the luckiest man alive. I had a beautiful, loving wife, and the peace of mind that my blind mother was in the best possible hands. I was a millionaire many times over, but that right there was my real wealth. The car service was waiting, and as we slid through the light afternoon traffic, my phone buzzed. It was Amelia. I almost answered, then decided against it. The surprise was too good to ruin. I texted back a simple, "Just got out of a meeting, baby, I love you." A small lie, but for a good reason. Her reply came instantly, "I love you too. Can't wait for you to be home tomorrow. Mom and I are just having a quiet day, a quiet day." It sounded perfect. The driver pulled through the large iron gates that separated our home from the winding Beverly Hills Street. The house was a modern marvel of glass and white stone, a testament to my success. But to me, it was just the box that held my treasures. I paid the driver, told him to have a good day, and pulled my carry-on bag up the stone pathway. The first thing I noticed was the silence. It was profound. Usually, there was some sound, music, the television, the gentle murmur of conversation. But today, nothing. The heavy oak door hissed open under my touch, and I stepped into the cool, marble-floored foyer. "Amelia," I called out, my voice seeming to echo in the stillness. "Mom," no answer. I left my bag by the door and walked through the downstairs area. The living room was immaculate, the cushions on the sprawling white sofa perfectly plumped. The kitchen was gleaming and empty. No scent of cooking, no sign of life. A flicker of unease, small and unwelcome, started in my gut. Maybe they'd gone for a walk, but my mother rarely left the house unless I was with her. I headed for the garden. The sliding glass doors were open, letting in a warm breeze that smelled of jasmine and chlorine from the pool. The garden was empty. Her pruning shears and gloves sat on a stone bench, untouched. Now the unease was a knot, tightening slowly. I walked back inside, my footsteps loud on the polished floors. I checked the sunroom, my mother's favorite spot. Empty. The armchair was vacant, her reading glasses folded neatly on the side table beside an audiobook player that was switched off. "Amelia," I called again, louder this time, a sharp edge to my voice. Silence was my only reply. I took the stairs two at a time, my heart starting to thump against my ribs. Our bedroom. I pushed open the door. The bed was made, my wife's scent lingering faintly in the air, a mix of her perfume and something uniquely her. But the room was empty. The only place left was my mother's wing of the house. It was a suite of rooms I had designed specifically for her, with a spacious bedroom, a sitting area, and a bathroom fitted with every possible safety feature. As I walked down the hall, I finally heard it. A sound. It was a voice, Amelia's voice. But it was different. It wasn't the warm, gentle tone I knew. This was thin, sharp, and laced with a cruelty that was so foreign it took me a moment to even process that it was hers. "And you'll just sit there, won't you, like you always do, useless." Just a lump of useless flesh in a chair. I froze, my hand hovering over the doorknob of my mother's sitting room. The door was slightly ajar. My blood went cold. This had to be a mistake, a misunderstanding. Maybe she was on the phone, angry with a rude salesperson or a frustrating automated system. That had to be it. I pushed the door open a few more inches, peering through the crack. The scene that unfolded before me shattered my world into a million irreparable pieces. My mother was sitting in her chair, her back straight, her hands clenched in her lap. Her face, usually so serene, was a mask of tense, quiet suffering. Her blind eyes were pointed towards the empty space in front of her. But I knew she was listening to every word, every poisonous syllable, like a physical blow. And there was Amelia, my Amelia. She was standing in front of my mother, holding a small, ornate silver tray. On the tray was a single, pathetic slice of dry, white bread and a glass of water. But that wasn't the worst of it. In her other hand, Amelia was holding a fork, and on it was a piece of glistening, perfectly cooked salmon, flaked with herbs. She brought it to her own lips, closed her eyes in an exaggerated show of ecstasy, and moaned softly. "MMM," she said, her voice dripping with venomous sweetness. "This salmon is just divine, Clara. It's so flaky and buttery. The chef at Le Bernardine would be jealous. And the asparagus, perfectly crisp, drizzled with a lemon butter sauce. You can probably smell it, can't you, even if you can't see it? It's a shame, really. All this wonderful food, and all you get is your dry little crust." She took another bite, chewing slowly, performatively. My mother didn't move. She didn't speak. She just sat there, absorbing the cruelty, a silent, stoic prisoner in her own home. My mind struggled to catch up with what my eyes were seeing. It felt like watching a movie, a grotesque, surreal horror film starring the woman I loved. The small lies, the sweet facade, the feigned compassion. It was all a performance, a long, elaborate con. And I had been the gullible, cheering audience. The rage came then. It wasn't hot and explosive. It was an ice-cold wave that washed over me, clarifying everything in its chilling path. The silence of the house wasn't peaceful. It was suffocating. My wife's sweet texts weren't loving. They were lies to maintain her cover. The trust I had placed in her was a joke. Amelia leaned in closer to my mother, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "He'll never know, you know. He's so busy, so important. He sends his money, and he thinks that's enough. He doesn't see. He doesn't see anything. He looks at me and sees an angel. He looks at you and sees a burden he's noble for carrying." She laughed, a soft, ugly little sound that scraped against my soul. That was it. That was the sound that broke the spell. I pushed the door open. It didn't slam. It swung open with a soft, funereal creak. The sound was quiet, but in that tension-filled room, it was as loud as a gunshot. Amelia froze mid-laugh, the fork halfway to her mouth. Her head snapped towards the door. The color drained from her face, leaving a pasty, sickly white. Her blue eyes, which I had always thought were as clear and honest as a summer sky, widened in pure, unadulterated horror. The mask of the loving wife, the cruel tormentor, it all fell away, and for the first time, I saw the real Amelia. She was small and pathetic and terrified. The fork clattered from her hand, landing with a metallic ping on the silver tray. The piece of salmon fell onto the plush carpet. I didn't look at her. I couldn't. My gaze went straight to my mother. "Mom," I said. My voice was hoarse, a stranger's voice. Her head tilted towards the sound of me. A flicker of confusion, then dawning, heartbreaking hope crossed her features. Richard, is that you? You're home early." Her own voice was thin, fragile, like a dried leaf. I walked past Amelia as if she were a piece of furniture, a ghost, an irrelevance. I knelt on the floor in front of my mother's chair, the way I used to when I was a little boy with a scraped knee. I took her frail, trembling hands in mine. They were ice cold. "I'm home, Mom," I said, my voice breaking. "I'm home now." A single tear escaped from her unseeing eye and traced a path down her wrinkled cheek. It was a tear she had probably held back for months, maybe even years. The dam of her silent endurance finally broke, and a choked sob escaped her lips. "Oh, Richard," she whispered, her fingers tightening around mine. "I'm so glad you're home." Behind me, I could hear Amelia start to stammer. "Richard, honey, it's not what it looks like. We were playing a game, a silly game." I didn't turn around. I didn't acknowledge her. I squeezed my mother's hands gently. "Are you hungry, Mom?" I asked softly. "Would you like some real food? I'm thinking a nice piece of salmon, maybe with some asparagus." I felt my mother flinch at the words, a testament to the psychological torture she had endured. "No," she whispered. "No, please." "Okay," I said, my voice thick with an emotion I couldn't name. It was a cocktail of fury, grief, and a profound, bottomless guilt for my own blindness. "Okay, Mom, whatever you want. How about a nice bowl of soup and some warm bread with butter?" She nodded, another sob shaking her small frame. I stood up, slowly and finally, turned to face my wife. She stood there, wringing her hands, the silver tray still clutched in one of them like a shield. Her face was a mess of feigned confusion and desperate pleading. "Richard, you have to listen to me," she began, her voice high and frantic. "It was a joke. Your mother has a very dry sense of humor. You know that. We were just teasing each other." I looked at her. I really looked at her. I looked past the beautiful face I had memorized, the body I had loved, the person I had built a life with, and I saw a stranger, a monster dressed in my wife's clothes. The love I had felt for her, which just an hour ago had been a roaring fire, was now a pile of cold, gray ash. There was nothing left to salvage, nothing. "A joke," I repeated. My voice was flat, devoid of any emotion at all. The cold rage had settled deep in my bones, a permanent part of my marrow now. "You think tormenting a blind, defenseless woman is a joke? No, that's not what it was," she cried, taking a step towards me. "I love your mother, you know I do. Richard, please, don't look at me like that. Get the tray," I said, my voice dangerously quiet. "What?" "The tray," I repeated, pointing a trembling finger at the salmon on the floor. "Pick it up. And the fork." She stared at me, confused. Then, hesitantly, she bent down and picked up the fork and the soiled piece of fish, placing them back on the tray with a shaky hand. "Now," I said, "take that tray, go downstairs to the kitchen, and scrape every last bit of it into the garbage. Then I want you to go to our room and pack a bag." The reality of my words finally hit her. The desperation in her eyes curdled into panic. "Pack a bag, Richard. No, don't do this. We can talk about this. We can go to counseling. We can fix this. I made a mistake. A terrible, horrible mistake. A mistake is forgetting to pick up milk from the store," I said, my voice as hard as the stone of our house. "A mistake is taking a wrong turn on the freeway. What you did, what I saw you doing, that's not a mistake. That's your character. That's who you are when you think no one is watching." I took a step towards her, and she flinched back as if I had struck her. "You stood there and you psychologically tortured my mother, my blind mother. You took pleasure in her suffering. You gloated. You mocked her disability. You called her a useless burden." My voice started to rise, the icy calm finally cracking. "And you did it all with a smile on your face, in the house that I paid for, while eating the food that I provided. I don't know why I did it," she wailed, tears now streaming down her face. But they were tears for herself, for the life that was evaporating before her eyes. There was no remorse for my mother in them. "I've been under so much stress, taking care of her. It's been hard." The excuse was so pathetic, so transparent, that a single, harsh laugh escaped my lips. "Hard? You think that's been hard? My mother lost her sight. She lost her husband. She lost her independence. And then she had to live with you, her own personal tormentor. Don't you dare talk to me about hard. I walked over to the phone on the sitting room table and picked it up. What are you doing? She asked, her voice a terrified whisper. I'm calling a car to take you to a hotel, I said. Dialing the number for the car service I kept on retainer. You have 20 minutes to pack your things. Take what you need for a few days. Your lawyer will be hearing from my lawyer in the morning regarding the rest of your possessions and the dissolution of our marriage. Dissolution? Richard, no, you can't just throw me out. We built a life together. I love you. No, you don't, I said, my back to her as I spoke calmly to the dispatcher on the phone. You love my money. You love the life I provide. And you resented the one person, the one burden you had to share it with. The car will be here in 15 minutes. Be outside. I hung up the phone. I didn't look at her again. I walked back to my mother, who had been sitting in silence, listening to the destruction of my marriage. Her face was etched with a sorrow so deep it felt ancient. I'm so sorry, Mom, I whispered, my own tears finally coming, tears of shame. I'm so sorry I didn't see. I'm so sorry I let this happen to you. She reached out a hand, and her fingers found my cheek. She wiped away a tear with her thumb. It's not your fault, my son, she said, her voice soft but firm. You gave me a home. You worked so hard to give us everything. A wolf got into the sheep's pen. It's not the shepherd's fault for not knowing the wolf could speak. I stayed there, kneeling by her side, holding her hand, until we heard the front door close with a soft, final click, and in the ensuing silence, the vast, echoing silence of our broken home, we just held on to each other. The days that followed were a blur of lawyers, paperwork, and a hollowed-out feeling that clung to me like a shroud. Amelia tried to fight it, of course. Her lawyers sent letters claiming emotional distress and demanding a ludicrous settlement. They tried to paint me as a neglectful, absentee husband and her as a lonely, overwhelmed caregiver who had a momentary, regrettable lapse in judgment. I instructed my legal team to spare no expense. We deposed the household staff, the cook, the gardener, the cleaners who came twice a week. At first, they were hesitant, afraid of losing their jobs. I assured them their positions were safe. I just wanted the truth. And the truth came out. It came out in a flood of quiet, sad stories. The cook tearfully admitted that Amelia often instructed her to prepare lavish meals for herself, while giving her specific, meager instructions for my mother's tray. Just toast, Maria. She'd say, she doesn't know the difference anyway. The cleaner mentioned that she had once walked in on Amelia moving a piece of furniture just slightly, then watching with a smirk as my mother later stumbled into it. They had all seen small things, little cruelties, but had been too intimidated by Amelia, the lady of the house, to speak up. They assumed I knew, or that it was none of their business. Each revelation was another knife in my gut. The guilt was a physical weight. How could I have been so blind, more blind than my own mother? I had been so preoccupied with building walls of financial security around us that I never once thought to check if the enemy was already inside. I settled with Amelia. I gave her more than she deserved, but less than she wanted. The price was silence, a non-disclosure agreement that would legally bar her from ever speaking about me or my mother again. I paid to make her disappear, to erase her from our lives as completely as possible. The day the divorce was finalized, I felt no relief, no victory, just a profound, aching emptiness. The woman I had loved never really existed. I had been married to a ghost, a carefully constructed illusion. With Amelia gone, the house felt cavernous and cold. The silence I had once found so alarming became our new normal. I canceled all my international travel for the foreseeable future, delegating to my executive team. My most important project was now at home. I hired a full-time caregiver for my mother, a warm, kind woman named Sarah who had impeccable references and eyes that crinkled at the corners when she smiled. But I didn't leave my mother's care entirely to her. I was there. I started making her breakfast myself every morning. I learned to make the oatmeal she liked, not too thick, with a sprinkle of cinnamon. We would sit together in the sunroom, and I would read the newspaper to her. From the front page headlines to the box scores of the baseball games in the afternoons. We would walk in the garden. I would describe the colors of Amelia's roses, the deep, velvety red of the Mr. Lincoln, the pale, creamy yellow of the peace rose. I learned to see the world not just through my own eyes, but through how I would describe it to her. The sky wasn't just blue, it was the color of a robin's egg this morning. The leaves on the maple tree weren't just green, they were 100 different shades, from lime to emerald, slowly, painfully. My mother began to open up about her time with Amelia. She told me it started small. A sarcastic comment here, a forgotten glass of water there. It escalated over time as Amelia grew, bolder, more confident in my absence and my ignorance. My mother never told me because she didn't want to be a burden. That was the word Amelia had used against her, and it had become her deepest fear. I knew how happy you were with her, Richard, she told me one afternoon, her voice filled with a mother's selfless love. She was beautiful, and she made you laugh. I didn't want to be the reason that ended. I thought I could handle it. You should never have had to handle it, Mom, I said, my voice thick with emotion. Your only job is to let me take care of you. Her ordeal had diminished her, made her more frail and timid. But as the weeks turned into months, I saw the spark return. Her appetite came back. Her shoulders, which had been perpetually hunched in a defensive posture, began to relax. Her laughter, a sound I realized I hadn't truly heard in years, started to fill the quiet halls of the house again. One day, I came home from a rare half-day at the office to find her and Sarah. In the kitchen, the room was filled with the warm, sweet smell of baking. My mother was sitting at the table, her hands covered in flour, a genuine, blissful smile on her face. Sarah was guiding her hands, showing her how to knead dough by feel alone. We're making your father's favorite cinnamon rolls, my mother announced proudly. Sarah is showing me how. I watched them for a moment, unseen, from the doorway, and, in that simple, domestic scene, the flour dust in the air, the easy camaraderie, my mother's joyful expression, I found a peace that all the money in the world could never buy. I had spent so many years building an empire of glass and steel, when the only kingdom that ever mattered was right here, in the warmth of this kitchen. The house is still big, still quiet, but it's a different kind of quiet now. It's a peaceful quiet, a comfortable silence. It's the quiet of two people who don't need to fill the air with noise to know they are loved, to know they are safe. I still work, but my priorities have been irrevocably altered. My wealth is no longer a number on a balance sheet. It's the sound of my mother's laughter. It's the feel of her hand in mine as we walk through the garden. It's the privilege of reading to her as the sun sets, describing the brilliant streaks of orange and purple that she can only see through my words. The memory of what Amelia did, of what I allowed to happen, will always be a scar on my soul. It's a reminder of my own blindness, my own failure. But it's also a reminder of what is real. Love isn't found in grand gestures or perfect facades. It's found in the small, quiet moments, in making oatmeal just right, in describing the color of a rose, in being present. I walked in early that day and caught my wife doing a monstrous thing to my blind mother. But in a strange, painful way, I'm grateful, because in doing so, I was finally able to open my own eyes. I lost a millionaire's wife, but I found my way back to being a son, and that is a trade I would make again, in a heartbeat.